Siim, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. I want to cover your background and how you originally got into health and longevity.
Uh, yeah, so I was pretty, I guess, healthy and physically active as a child. I started like working out specifically in high school when, yeah, lifting weights primarily. And that was my first introduction to like calories and macros and exercise and diets, etc. I yeah, focused on that for maybe like a few years until I guess like what was 8 years ago, which was 2016. I started my YouTube channel where I shared a lot of different, I guess, topics. In the beginning, it was also about philosophy or personal development and books and those kind of things, in addition to health. But over time, my content, started focused mostly on like nutrition and health topics. And I started uh, talking about things like intermittent fasting, different diets, supplements, and exercise, and biohacking, and blood work, etc. And over time, it's just kind of grown, and I've just shared different topics that mostly I'm interested in in a particular moment, and what I've discovered about these topics.
Got it. Yeah, I love your content and I've got a million questions for you. But the focus of my podcast is for brain injury survivors. And in your book, Stronger by Stress, you mentioned that stress is very helpful. Brain injury is an incredible stressor to the body, brain, and nervous system. What
Mhm.
were some of the insights that you had from writing that book about stress?
Yeah, so like I wrote it in 2020, in the beginning of 2020. I guess it was in response to like some of the world events at the time.
Hmm.
And I guess the main idea of the book was that, as the title says, instead of being weakened by stress, you can choose to become stronger from it. And this is, ubiquitous biological phenomenon in plants and animals, in different life forms of this hormesis, which pretty much refers to like getting stronger from stress. And it it's kind of this biphasic response to a particular toxin or stressor that then yields a positive adaptation. So exercise is an example of hormesis. You exercise, your body is experiencing stress from that, but it's a positive stressor that increases, your antioxidant defense, increases your immunity, makes you stronger, more resilient, improves your health, etc. And like, bone density goes up. So bone density increases directly in response to like the trauma, physical trauma. So like this, when you're jumping or like lifting something heavy, that's the only way to like legitimately increase bone density. Without that, like you really wouldn't be able to do it. Um, Other examples of it are like heat stress. So saunas, cold exposure, they all have uh, they're like, unnormal in the sense like you experience more unconventional heat and unconventional cold that then again forces the body to adapt and makes it stronger. I guess one of the biggest lessons I learned from writing the book itself was that there's a very subjective aspect to stress, and there's like a lot of different types of stressors with different effects. Not all bad things are good for you. Like certain toxins or poisons are pretty harmful at a very low dose already, and they don't yield any positive effects. Um, but a lot of those things that generally are considered to be healthy can have some positive effects in the right dose. So if you exercise too much, or if you get too much cold or too much heat, then they all will have negative effects. So it all depends on the dose. And that threshold of when it becomes harmful also varies between people. So like you take a Navy SEAL, they're used to the cold and they're used to a lot of exercise. So for them to stress them out, you need a lot more compared to someone who isn't used to that at all. So they would get stressed out and they would experience the negative side effects a lot sooner compared to like the Navy SEAL character. So you can cultivate this stress resilience, uh, but you shouldn't like, I guess jump into it that hard. Like you need to kind of level up your resilience over time when it comes to like some of these positive stressors like exercise and cold or heat.
Got it. So no injecting ourselves with strychnine poisoning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is the story from, I guess it was ancient Rome of, I don't remember, Mithras, I think it was his name, that he was a king. He was afraid that someone's gonna try to poison him, so he injected him with like small poisons, and it worked. But the problem was that then the Romans came and conquered his kingdom. He tried to kill himself with poison, but it didn't work because he had developed a tolerance to it. So he fell into captivity. So yeah, I mean, I guess depends a lot on the goal.
Certainly. When it comes to like supplementation, or let's just say somebody experienced a concussion and so they're feeling out of balance, out of homeostasis, what would you recommend? Or like five, if you could recommend only five supplements for somebody that's having a nervous system dysregulation, like what would those five supplements be?
Hmm. For overall like nervous system and brain health, omega 3s are pretty much one of the best ones. So EPA, DHA, they're like considered like conditionally essential, but I think they should more be actually essential. And yeah, people with higher omega-3 levels, they have lower mortality, lower rates of Alzheimer's, lower heart disease, etc., lower inflammation, lower diabetes risk. Second supplement would be creatine. So usually it's considered to be like a muscle building supplement, but there's a lot of creatine in the brain, and your brain uses a lot of creatine. And there's now like a ton of research also on the cognitive effects of creatine. Improves memory in elderly people and counteracts sleep loss. And there's even like studies that like relatively immediately after getting like a traumatic brain injury, taking creatine can also like improve some of the symptoms. And yeah, like in the long term, it certainly has benefits for that. Third supplement would probably be like magnesium. So a lot of people are deficient in magnesium, and it's one of those kind of supplements that, or minerals that also is like central to pretty much everything, every like aspect of health. And low magnesium status is a like risk factor for many of these chronic diseases, including, central nervous system issues, and stress related issues. Number four, probably like, for the brain and nervous system specifically, it's gotta be like B12. I don't think that a lot of people need inherently to supplement with B12, but for yeah, like the nervous system, especially, it's quite important to have. And lastly, I think it's not inherently like a supplement, but like choline is a vitamin-like substance that is also essential for the nervous system and myelination of the neurons to help like with this transmission. Um, so choline is something that I think is better to get from whole foods, so like egg yolks, liver, and those kind of foods. There are like obviously choline supplements out there as well, but I don't think they're maybe not the best for a lot of in a lot of cases, because it can also like increase some of this compound called TMAO, which is considered to be like a risk factor for kidney disease and heart disease. So I would much rather, yeah, focus on the choline from foods, so egg yolks and liver.
How about with coffee? I noticed a post recently. Personally speaking, coffee, I have a love-hate relationship to it.
Mm.
I if somewhat addicted to caffeine, and it can interrupt deep sleep cycles and things of that nature. And when I'm feeling stressed, maybe back to the hormesis effect, when I drink too much coffee, I find my heart palpitating and I kind of get in an anxiety state. Overall, can you generally walk us through coffee and caffeine?
Yeah, so coffee consumption generally is associated with better health outcomes, so like lower rates of liver cancer, lower diabetes, lower Parkinson's, lower heart disease, lower mortality. And a lot of those effects are because of these polyphenolic compounds in coffee. So coffee has a lot of healthy compounds. And, part of the benefits might also be from caffeine slightly, although I think it's like a minority in that case. But caffeine alone also can have health benefits. Kind of increases alertness and energy production. But of course, yeah, if it starts to disrupt sleep, then it's like a net negative. But regardless, like the polyphenolic compounds are generally considered healthy. Um, I guess one of the issues with caffeine has to do with, yeah, the genetic phenotype of the person. So like if they have genes for slow caffeine metabolism, then they tend to do worse with caffeine. So they get more anxiety, more jittery. The caffeine stays in their system for a lot longer. They get sleep problems from even like a morning cup of coffee, whereas others are like fast metabolizers. They burn through it very fast. They can, drink coffee for dinner and still fall asleep fine. So there's a lot of genetic differences there, and I think a lot of cases, people who say that, oh, I can't just drink coffee at all. I, can't sleep. I get all this jitteriness. It's usually people who have this slow metabolizer genotype, and yeah, I think that's the kind of main issue. The second issue could be also the amounts. So yeah, like everything has this kind of bell shape curve that too much of something is obviously going to be bad. Too much caffeine will, even if you're a fast metabolizer, can be problematic. So I think like looking at the studies, then the kind of sweet spot is something like 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day is giving like the lowest risk of mortality and the best outcomes. So like anything above that, I think is not really like recommended. And when you're talking about the brain specific, then caffeine does like reduce blood flow to the brain. Uh, you know, how big of an issue it is, I guess, yeah, it depends a lot on who you ask and at what point are you looking at it. So if you like look at acutely, okay, reduced blood flow to the brain, it must be bad. But coffee consumers still have lower rates of, neurodegeneration. So I guess it's not that bad in that scenario. So you can easily avoid it by just paying attention to how much are you consuming, when, and how it affects your other like daytime routines.
Fascinating. I think of water. In that case, like you can have too much of anything. You can have too much water.
Mm,
And
yeah,
so
for sure.
when it comes to, you mentioned glycine recently. That was an interesting one. Bone broth
Mm.
has a lot of glycine.
Yeah, so glycine is this kind of gelatinous amino acid. You get it from bone broth and tendons and ligaments and skins, etc. Uh, so it's like 30% of collagen is glycine. So, and the collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body, including animals. Then obviously, so it's yeah found in all the kind of connective tissue. And the glycine is interesting because it has benefits on like blood sugar. It supports antioxidant defense. It supports collagen synthesis. It lowers inflammation. It protects against advanced glycation end products that come from like cooking food, and improves sleep for some people, maybe not everyone. But yeah, it's a very like underrated amino acid in my opinion, and a lot of people might not be getting enough, in my opinion, because in the modern world we tend to eat a lot of like muscle meat, which has a high amount of methionine, and in animal studies, high methionine intake in the absence of glycine is associated with, or has been shown repeatedly to shorten lifespan and increase the risk of cancer. So, but it doesn't apply if the glycine level, or if you have more glycine there as well. So it mostly is about the balance between methionine and glycine. So rather than eating only muscle meat, it's better to eat a lot of these kind of tendon meats or ligaments and skins and broths as well. They do contain glycine, maybe not in like adequate amounts from like a single source, which is why I also kind of supplement myself.
A lot there. I work a lot with people with memory issues, and you mentioned I don't even know how to pronounce it. Oleic acid, I believe is how you would say it, and olive oil.
Mm.
Go into that relationship and how that's helpful for memory.
Yeah, so it's a type of fatty acid in olive oil, and I'm not exactly, I don't exactly know the mechanisms by which it improves brain function, but olive oil intake, because of the polyphenolic compounds, plus the oleic acid is yeah, found to be associated with reduced risk of Alzheimer's and heart disease as well. So yeah, there's like multiple mechanisms for the polyphenolic compounds, like anti-inflammatory, uh, anti-diabetic, anti like lipids, lowering lipids, lowering blood sugar, lowers inflammation, immunomodulatory effects, and even something like some of these like epigenetic effects that they activate different pathways in the body that have been seen to be linked to slower aging and lower risk of these chronic diseases.
Got it. Awesome. Awesome stuff. Now, when it comes to nose breathing and the relationship and mouth breathing, do you tape your mouth at night? And what are like the long-term implications of that? Because personally, yeah, I've been taping my mouth to nose breathe and retrain that process. But seems like we're missing something there because like, we naturally mouth breathe. So it's kind of made we naturally do that. Just because we naturally do it doesn't mean it's good for us. But what are your thoughts on like the long-term implications of like mouth taping and stuff like that?
Mm. Well, naturally, we're generally gonna breathe through the nose. So it mostly is about like the jaw structure. So if you look at all these Aboriginal societies and hunter-gatherers, then they have like very wide jaws. They have like very developed teeth and cheeks, etc., because of they're getting quite good like fat soluble vitamins in their diet. So that enables the proper development of the jaw bones, etc., which allows them to kind of breathe through them. And the nasal, it's like a bidirectional relationship that nasal breathing also enables to like develop proper jaw bones, etc. Then so naturally you would breathe through the nose most of the time, and you would breathe through the mouth when like you're either like exercising, doing some sort of physical activity, when you're talking, or yeah, just every once in a while you can also breathe through the mouth. But like 90% of the day you should still like breathe through the nose in most cases. So that's what with the proper jaw development would happen. And you can yeah like retrain that with some of this mouth taping, and especially during the night is very important to breathe through the nose, because you know that's when your body is supposed to recover, and breathing through the mouth is kind of a sympathetic response. So it generally stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, which is the kind of stressed out nervous system. And it also like with that breathing through the nose also kind of purifies the air, quote unquote. You have like all these hairs in your nose that kind of block out pathogens and dust and all those things, so you can get like the as clean air as possible. So your nose is supposed to be like a filter that filters out the air. There's also like some of these I don't know the exact organelles or organs, but there's some mechanism by which it also stimulates nitric oxide production in the nasal cavities. And nitric oxide is this molecule that supports smoothing or relaxing of the blood vessels, supports blood flow, and lowers blood pressure. So yeah, like by breathing through the mouth, you're not really getting those benefits either. So the best way to breathe, yeah, is through the nose most of the time. And when you're sleeping, that's kind of the best way to teach that as well, that you place like a mouth tape across the lips, and kind of force yourself to breathe through the nose. Over time, you will probably not need the tape anymore, but initially it might kind of require some of practice with that. And during the day, it just, mostly comes down to kind of paying attention to your breath a little bit. We might not be aware that we're breathing through the mouth in some cases. So it's kind of a useful to know, at least try to pay attention to it every once in a while.
Yeah, those are great tips, and I've noticed a big change in my sleep scores with the Oura Ring
Mm.
that I check. And ever since I've been mouth taping, I've had a lot of positive benefits and better sleep scores, which is awesome. There's a few areas that I'm quite ignorant on that perhaps you know. When it I don't know much, quite honestly, about the skin health, and it's something I've want to learn more about, and how it's our, I know it's our largest organ, but what are some ways that we can take care of our skin, and what's the importance of that?
Hmm. Yeah, so you know, I guess most people have the perception, yeah, that healthy skin indicates like youthfulness and good health, and old skin or let's say pimple skin or something like that indicates like worse health or older, being biologically older. Now there is some like link there, but it's very like subjective in my opinion because if you know ask people, okay, how old is this person? 10 people will give a different results. So it's all very subjective. Like if you ask if Brian Johnson is older or younger or something like that, everyone will say different results because of their kind of own subjective perception of what is younger or older. So it's hard to like test for that. Okay, do you have younger skin or not? There are, of course, some like, I guess, scans and tools to do that. But for the average eye, untrained eye, it's very hard. So the average person isn't able to tell that in most cases.
Yeah.
But the reason why it's irrelevant is, yeah, because there is some correlation between, let's say, a younger appearance and also better health. It's not perfect, but yeah, like looking younger in at least some studies does indicate lower biological age and having like better health, and also predicts slower aging over time, but it's not super precise as of now, in my opinion. Uh, Other reasons why it's important is obviously, that it's the biggest organ. It protects us from the outside world. It, protects us against the sun as well. In that sense, excess sun exposure can be harmful. Of course, depends a lot on the individual and the dose of how much sun are you getting. But I mean, sun exposure is one of the biggest causes of extrinsic skin aging. So, kind of outside stimuli for the skin aging, and also for skin cancer. So those are mostly related to this kind of sun exposure, not like diet or those kind of other things. So for skin anti-aging purposes, one of the most effective one is probably like sunscreen. Um, just if you wear sunscreen, then you're gonna get less damage from the sun over time. And if you look at people over the course of decades, you will see some significant differences. Even people who use, okay, I'm gonna use sunscreen on my face, but not on my neck or something. If the person enters into their 40s and 50s, you'll see that, okay, their face skin looks kind of youthful, but they didn't put sunscreen on their neck, and the neck is kind of wrinkled a bit more and has more these sunspots. So even like individually, you can see a lot of the effects of sunscreen. I personally, don't use a lot of sunscreen because there's not that much sun in Estonia, and in the summer as well. Like I tend to go out when it's not the hottest time of the day. So, somewhere between like 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., that's when the sun is the hottest. That's when you can get burned the most. And that's when you typically want to not spend a ton of time outside in the sun. If you do, then it would be better to use like some sunscreen or some, even like sleeves or something else to kind of protect against that. You get a lot of the benefits of the sun without having to, cover your entire body with the sunlight. Like you can get the vitamin D from even like just the face or the kind of arms or legs, etc. So you don't need to be sunbathing to get the benefits from the sun,
Oh,
etc. You'll get the vitamin D from even like 20 to 30 minutes of being outside in the midday with short sleeves. And you also get the circadian rhythm benefits. So like you get this biological cycles linked to the day and night cycles. So you'll have the hormone optimized, and you'll have the mood benefits, etc. From that. So the eyes are the most important for the circadian rhythm regulation. But yeah, like I said, I don't use that much sunscreen myself because I'm not exposed to a ton of sunlight. If I'm in like Sicily or Florida or Spain or something else where it's super hot, then I would use it. First of all, because I'm not used to it. My skin isn't used to it because of living in northern climate. So a Norwegian going to Canary Islands and then immediately goes outside, they're gonna get sunburned because their skin isn't adapted to it. So it's again like this hormetic principle. You need to adapt to it over time, instead of jumping immediately into it. Um, but yeah, like in the morning, somewhere around like 7 a.m., 9 a.m., that's when the sun is not that hot. It doesn't cause that much damage. And in the evening as well, you get more of this red light exposure. So in 6 p.m., 7 p.m., uh, that wavelength of light is also not that harmful, like for skin aging purposes. And a lot of it is, I guess, tied to like the aesthetics, so the skin aging side. So, like I said, there is some link between maintaining like younger appearance, but I don't think I don't think like wrinkles caused by the sunlight would mean that you're like aging faster. Maybe your appearance is aging faster, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna live shorter, if that makes sense. Because a lot of the like blue zones, they still live in pretty close to the sun, and they don't use a sunscreen, I think, in most cases. So you'll just look older if you get a
yeah.
lot of sun, but it doesn't mean that you'll die sooner in that sense. Uh, with the exception of maybe like Australia, where they're close to the ozone layer, or there's a ozone layer close to them, so they have a very high rates of skin cancer there. Other things good for the skin, I think, collagen is one good supplement for skin anti-aging. There's quite a few clinical trials showing that it reverses hallmarks of skin aging. Astaxanthin is one supplement that also like protects the skin against the UV radiation. So it's like internal sunscreen in a sense that your cells are more resilient against the UV radiation from the sun. And that is also like very dependent of the individual. If they're like unhealthier, they don't consume a lot of these carotenoids, which are these compounds you get from colorful vegetables and salmon and shrimps, etc., then their skin is also more vulnerable to UV radiation. Whereas if you're a healthy person, you eat a lot of carotenoids, you maybe take carotenoid supplements, then your cells are more resilient against the UV radiation as well. And lastly, I think one easy way to kind of improve skin appearance and like have like less wrinkles is also just hydration, skin hydration. So a lot of the like wrinkles or something like that might be just because of dehydration of the skin. And with age, the skin becomes more dehydrated, and you also lose this compound called hyaluronic acid, which maintains hydration of the skin. You can take hyaluronic acid as a supplement, and there are clinical trials showing that it helps with skin wrinkles and skin hydration. But you can also obviously drink plenty of fluids, water, as well as like maybe some moisturizer. Simple moisturizer can also go a long way. It doesn't have to be some sort of a expensive special moisturizer. Just regular moisturizers work very effectively as well.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to review this afterwards. There's tons of great information within all of this. How about when eye health? What are some protocols that you would recommend for improving just general vision and the aging process of that?
Hmm. Yeah, well, with eyes, it's a bit similar with the skin, so that these carotenoids also protect the eyes. And your eyes are like literally like an extension of your brain. So they're connected to the brain directly, and they also transmit the circadian signals, so the light cues through the eyes to the brain to control your body's circadian clocks. So they are, yeah, obviously very important. So these carotenoids protect against, oxidative stress and aging of the eyes. Excess this blue light exposure, like artificial light, typically damages the eyes. So you're getting a lot of this blue light that damages the mitochondria and causes oxidative stress in the eyes. So ideally, you want to like get some like full spectrum light, so as you would get from sunlight. Obviously, not look at the sun directly because it's too bright and it can also like cause cataracts, etc. But indirectly, sun exposure is useful for the eyes, especially in the early part of the day and the evening. So like kind of sunrise and sunset is very beneficial for the eyes because the UV radiation from the sunrise, plus you get a lot of this more red light from there, as opposed to a lot of blue light, which is during the daytime and what you get from artificial lights. So yeah, you get a lot of this balanced spectrum and predominantly like the red light, which has anti-inflammatory effects for the eyes. And you can also like, I guess, replicate that with some of these red light therapy devices. There are like a few studies showing that it actually helps with eye health as well, these red light devices. But the easiest and cheapest way is to get the sunrise and the sunset exposure indirectly to like the eyes. Just being outside will give that effect. And I guess lastly, technology use is one of the biggest sources of artificial light. And I guess, everything is very close in our modern life. The phone is close, the screen is close. So we rarely look at things into the distance. So we're not looking at things that are like 100 feet or 100 meters away. So I think it's useful to kind of train that as well, because otherwise you'll get myopia or your vision will suffer. So just taking eye breaks, looking into the distance out of the window somewhere, that forces you to like, okay, change your like focus, going from short sightedness to long sightedness, kind of maintains that muscle.
That's interesting. I didn't know about the red light therapy. I have heard of studies, but I have never implemented it myself. It's something I'm going to do moving forward. I was so curious if you knew anything about parasites and gut health. Like, is parasites something that we need to be concerned about, or we need to or eliminate, or if we have gut parasites, which I'm sure we all do to some extent, is it something we need to look at in general?
Well, dysbiosis, so like imbalanced microbiome, is a new emerging hallmark of aging. So with age, this microbial burden increases and your gut microbiome becomes more imbalanced, which can have systemic effects, mostly in like inflammation and nervous system imbalance. So it's hard to say if it's because of like aging itself, or is it because older people tend to like say fall off with some of their dietary choices, or their diets become more like less diverse, so they're like very monotonous diets. And one of the most effective way to maintain microbial diversity is to just eat a lot of different kinds of foods, specifically different kinds of plant foods. So the fiber feeds these different bacteria in your gut, and generally speaking, consuming these plant foods results in more of these beneficial bacteria that are associated with better health outcomes, and less of these bacteria that are associated with the worse health outcomes. Now, it also could also be because of diet quality. So, like diets that are higher in fiber are generally like higher quality, healthier diets compared to people who eat less fiber. Then, a lot of it's might be because of a very processed food diet or like a standard American diet. So it's hard to say, okay, because there's not that much, studies, or it's a very complicated topic like the microbiome and bacteria because first of all, there's so many of these different strains of bacteria, and it's also like a lot depends on other factors. But yeah, consuming different kinds of fibers is generally positive for the microbiome. There's also some new studies that these collagenous proteins that you get from animal protein can also have positive effects on the microbiome, but it's a lot less studied as of now. So yeah, I don't have anything specific else to say about that. It's very context dependent. So like some people have very bad reactions to certain foods, like plant foods, dairy, eggs, etc. So it's depends a lot on the like person's immune system and if they have any like autoimmune issues.
Yeah. I think that people tend to do things in extremes. I think the Liver King is an example of like,
Mhm.
you just grab an egg and eat it with the shell and stuff like that. It's just people extremism is a problem in general. People will go
Mhm.
one side of the spectrum or not. Um, I
Yeah.
want to know, as a man, I think of prostate health and I think of, my sexual health and stuff like that. Uh, what are some ways that we can, just feel better and have better sexual health and what are some things that we can take around that and to protect our prostate?
hmm Um, for men, like overall hormones, then just being healthy, kind of following a healthy lifestyle is, obviously the first things to think about. Obesity, extra body fat lowers testosterone. Being sedentary lowers testosterone. Poor diet, nutrient deficiencies can lower testosterone. Uh, for men, like the best testosterone, I guess the starter pack would be like lift weights quite regularly, uh, maintain normal body weight. Don't be like super shredded, but don't be like overweight either. So for men, it's something like 10 to 15% body fat. It's kind of the sweet spot for hormone health. If you go like too low body fat, then that can reduce testosterone. If you go over that, then that's also not good. So yeah, like 10 to 15% body fat. Lift weights maybe like 2 to 3 times per week. So the compound movements stimulate the release of growth hormone and they increase testosterone. So yeah, like not exercising will result in lower testosterone than exercising. With cardio, like too much cardio can lower testosterone. Um, and too much stress, so high cortisol levels can do that as well. But I would say, yeah, like some cardio is still important because men die to like heart disease a lot more than women, and they also have shorter life expectancy than women. So, and the testosterone itself isn't going to make you live longer. So it's in a lot of cases, yeah, men care about their testosterone, but they should also care about like cardio and their cardiovascular health, so that they wouldn't like die prematurely. When it comes to diet, then for optimal testosterone, it's something like moderate to high protein diet with moderate to high amounts of carbohydrates and moderate amounts of fat. That's what find that shows to be like the best for testosterone production. So like low carb diets result in lower testosterone like pretty universally. Low fat diets also lower testosterone. So you want to get at least 35% of your calories from fat and something like 35 to 50% of your calories as carbohydrates. That's usually like the most optimal split for testosterone production and protein as well, the rest of the calories from the protein. Uh, And with sleep, sleep is important. 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Sleep restriction is going to lower testosterone. And I guess, the sunlight exposure is also quite crucial here. So low vitamin D lowers testosterone, and you need vitamin D to make some of these steroid hormones. So yeah, like sun exposure, getting enough vitamin D is quite important as well.
I didn't realize that about the carbohydrate intake because I go very low carb, and I think that uh, I can see how that can interrupt it because complex carbohydrates certainly have utility that we may overlook. So I think that's a good piece that a lot of people probably miss out on upon.
Mm,
Um,
right.
Now, another selfish question here. When it comes to implants, what is there any relate? What's the role of titanium in the body versus I can't even remember what the other form that they offer for dental implants. I'm just curious because I
Mm,
have titanium implants out of affordability.
right.
Yeah,
Right. Um, yeah, I'm not a expert on like the dental procedures, but yeah, there is some, I guess, potential worry of using some like mercury fillings um, in your teeth because mercury can, leach a lot to the bloodstream from the fillings and cause like systemic inflammation. So, first of all, your teeth are connected to your brain as well, kind of through the nerves. So
yeah,
the nervous system is all connected, and inflammation in the mouth also can cause systemic inflammation. There's a connection with bad bacteria in the mouth causing inflammation and a lot of the chronic diseases like heart disease and Alzheimer's. And the same can apply to like these mercury fillings or implants that yeah, can leach some of these metals into the mouth. And a lot of people who have mercury fillings, at least, they tend to have also like high levels of blood mercury. So you can measure a lot of these things. You can measure heavy metals in your blood, like mercury, arsenic, and etc., to see cadmium and lead, etc., to see if you have like heavy metal uh, toxicity. I don't exactly know if the titanium is a like a big offender or not. I know that mercury certainly is, and they don't need, I think that it's like so toxic that they don't even recommend to like remove it without like a professional, like a really professional dentist who like really understands this topic. Because if you take it out, then you might like leach a lot more into the bloodstream and cause more issues. So it
yeah.
needs to be like done by a real like professional with mercury fillings. I don't know, like, I don't know about titanium, um, but I guess the safest options would be some sort of this ceramic implants, which, yeah, like I said, I'm not like a big expert on.
Sure. That's a great answer. That's a really good answer. I moving forward with the future of humankind, and we're learning so much with AI. And you mentioned Brian Johnson pushing the envelope. What do you feel just theoretically is like the extent of human age, or where can we move forward with longevity?
Yeah, well, at least within this century, we will have like average life expectancy in the more developed countries like Korea or Japan or something like that. We'll have it, at least in the 90s, the average life expectancy, which means that, we all have like grandmas and parents, like they would live to their 90s on average. Um, and some people might not. So I think the average life expectancy increasing isn't indicative that we're actually living longer as a species. It just means that more people are reaching closer to the maximum limit. We haven't like pushed beyond the theoretical maximum limit as of now. We're just people are living on average longer, and more people will live to their 100s within this century. There is some reason to think that yeah, maybe some people will live to like 130, which would be the new record, but it would be like still like a minority within this century. That's like again the current predictions.
Yeah.
With AI and some new breakthrough technologies, it can probably obviously change. Some Aubrey Gray, who pioneers a lot of this, he predicts that this longevity escape velocity is going to happen. I think he said something like 2035. So like in less than 10 years that we would be seeing such rapid progress in this medical technologies that every year that goes by, our life expectancy increases equally as much or even more, so that you continuously keep yourself alive with every year, despite the chronological time passing by. That's he's saying that within 10 years we'll reach that point, which means that we don't have to immediately live, we don't have to immediately reach immortality. It means that, okay, you reach 2035, that means you have 5 extra years, and within those 5 extra years, we'll figure something out that adds 10 more years or 6 more years at least. So it's
That's
like
so cool. Yeah.
continuously keeping yourself alive until we figure out things to keep you alive for longer. So that's kind of the theory. But yeah, I mean,
Stay
currently there's
alive.
no,
It's like the song
yeah,
Stay Alive.
yeah, but currently we don't know, there's no evidence that it would be the case right now.
Right. It's theoretical, and it's such a fascinating topic because there's apparently myths of people living like, well after a certain uh point, or who really knows 100% because they go back and they always find new evidence about humans and like where we really come from. I guess that's kind of the ending topic is we're getting more theoretical here, but um what do you think about the humans as a species and uh how long ago were we actually what is truly was the starting point for humankind? Because the years have changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
You could apply it to the other direction as well. At what point are we not Homo sapiens, but what's next, like Homo Deus or something else, Homo SpaceX, whatever it is. Like at what point do you cross the line? Like because right now we're kind of not cyborgs, but we have all these phones and stuff, technologies that we already use. Maybe the first people with a Neuralink or something will be the next species, but there's no like line in the sand to draw, and the same applies to our past.
Yeah.
There's a different human species been throughout history. I don't think no one really knew that they were kind of crossing the line to a different species, and I think that even the scientists themselves, don't know exactly where do you draw the line. Like, yeah, from
Totally.
like Homo erectus to Homo sapiens, like where was that transition exactly?
Yeah, there wasn't just like a split moment in time, but slowly over time. Now,
Mm.
I'd just like to leave how can the audience reach out to you? And what would you like to accomplish in your career? I know you're a young man, but what are some goals that you have for your career?
Yeah, so people can find me at siimland.com and Siim Land on YouTube and Instagram. My goal, my goal is to, yeah, be at the front seat of this next phase of the human evolution, and yeah, see how it's gonna pan out. Or I guess yeah, like share this journey with the audience, and yeah, kind of experience it myself and see how it goes. I don't have any like my goal isn't like become immortal or something. I don't have any like fear of death or anything like that. I think it's kind of just cool, or like wanna like an awesome problem that people have been trying to like solve, which is this longevity and aging and death.
Fantastic. Thanks again for coming on, and Yeah, everybody have a great day.